Hello, it's mini mukbang time. I'll tell you that a week ago, I had no idea what a mukbang is. M-U-K-B-A-N-G. And this is a guy whose family, his wife, we like Korean stuff. And apparently it's a Korean word that simply means there's a word that is something for eating, mukbang something, and then something for broadcasting. Now, what the general thing that happens with these mukbangs is that people eat a mess load of food. I don't have a mess load of food. It's a slow day on Friday. I decided to cope on ramen. Sorry, Marie, if you're watching, because I know that you like this stuff. And it's not a copious amount of food. It's not a lot of food. It's going to be a small amount of food. It'll look like a lot, maybe, but the great thing about opening some Coupon ramen here is it looks like I have two bowls, when in fact they're going to combine. So I'm going to, I guess, post if somebody wants to come in and chat. I don't know how long I'm going to be. There's 3 people that are here right now, and I'm betting they're all from Facebook. Yeah, they are, because there's more people on Facebook. And one of them, I'm wondering if is my wife. Well, now there's 2 on YouTube. So a lot of people staying home, maybe. The coronavirus allowed me to park in the visitor area this morning at work because apparently a lot of people are not showing up. And now that the LAUSD, oh, goodness me. You don't want to splash because that would be bad on live. I've washed my hands, by the way. I washed my hands singing. There was a viral video. Since I was afraid, I was petrified. Whatever that is, I'll survive. We will survive. Daniel's not on Facebook. Hey, Daniel, free for all. What you got? It's ramen. And I was explaining what a mukbang is. Mukbang is basically these videos where usually it's some really tiny Korean woman with massive amounts of food, and she just eats. Sometimes people talk. I'm going to end up talking, I think. Or maybe have somebody join me in the chat. So I'm posting. Make sure this goes. If you see the link I'm posting, I hope that it will show up on Facebook as well. Oh, it won't let me do it on Facebook. But I'm going to go to my Facebook right now and I'm going to put the link. And if you feel like joining, you can feel free. Anyway, the LAUSD, I put it on the Facebook. The LAUSD has canceled, that's the Los Angeles Unified School District, for 2 weeks. My son, who missed today, I'm certainly is really happy. It turns out that MLB The Show will be coming out for the PlayStation, and he's already pre-purchased. So he's a happy camper. But the link that I put in on the Facebook, if you click it and you have a webcam and you can speak, in addition to the one that I put in on YouTube, you can feel free to join in. The other thing that I have here, and I guess I'll try and so you can see it. So this is more than I would normally eat, I guess, with the idea of a mukbang. I'm not sure if I'll eat the whole thing, but it's some kind of salmon avocado roll, which looks really good. And they did give me chopsticks, so I think I'm going to use those too, but I want to make sure. Now, Coupon Ramen is a Los Angeles local ramen place. There are 3 of them that I've been to with my wife. She first introduced me to the one that's not very far and where this one came in, which is in Encino on Ventura Boulevard. What they do with the broth, apparently, is, and when you first taste it, I'm going to take a quick taste. My goodness, that's good. When you taste it, it has a vibe of like cream. And my brother, I remember we went there and my brother Mike, hello if you're watching. He thought, you know, he has a lactose intolerance thing. Sorry, Mike, that I'm revealing that. And he was convinced that he couldn't eat it because it tastes like it's cream. It's like it's a creamy based sauce. It turns out what they do at Kopan Ramen is they just create this liquid, this broth out of, I think, a beef bone, maybe pork. So sorry to the Jewish family, because there's pork. This one has chashu, which is like pork belly, I think, which is really, really delicious. As I put it, that's the protein in here. But it's the bone marrow that makes the ramen liquid, it gives it that creamy vibe, and it is ridiculously good. So if you've never been to Kopan Ramen, KOPA, you need to head on over there. And especially in a day in LA right now, as you might be able to see outside, it's pretty rainy. It's like a rainy vibe. So a little soup. No one is in the office, so I'm not bothering anybody. And they all left early, probably as an excuse, the COVID virus. I still have stuff to do. But I'd stop for lunch and see if anyone felt like chatting. And mukbanging for the first time. We could talk about a number of things. On YouTube, I was in an argument recently, a bunch of arguments with a guy by the name of DB Cisco. And DB Cisco, hello if you're watching. He is, I guess he was a teacher. I don't know if he does it now, a historian. And he studied a lot, particularly about the Bible. But he doesn't like the dogma, the normal Christian dogma, everything that we believe. For instance, I don't think that he would agree with me when I say Jesus is God. A lot of people that wouldn't agree with me. A lot of Muslims, for instance, and certainly a lot of Jewish people. And so we were getting on biblical arguments, I guess, from a history standpoint. And man, it just wasn't going anywhere. Oh, and this is rude, by the way. See, when you do that, I apologize. That is rude. I'm trying to let it sort of, I don't know what the word would properly be. Steep, like a tea. It might need to be heated up a little bit. So if Roxana's watching, she's not in the office anymore, na. Sorry, I've got ramen and you don't. Cool. We can talk Bible. We could talk coronavirus. We could talk baseball. And you can post as you're watching here, and I'll answer any questions. I think I've got everything. We're live streaming on Facebook. At least let me know that you're here and say hi, because there are a number of people that are watching right now. And I don't know who is watching. Could be just random strangers. What I'm using is, or we could even do, what could we do? I suppose we could do some dial-ins. We could do legal questions. Anything. Or I'll just end up deleting this. But I didn't feel like looking at bad news today. We could talk about it. And here I see Sister Sunshine just liked my video on Facebook. So you're around. So if you felt like, because Sister Sunshine, I love her very much. She's a sister in Christ. She's a little bit of she might be a little bit into those conspiracies. So she would have some interesting stuff, I'm sure, to talk about with regards to why everything's happening. Do I think it's biblical prophecy fulfilled? No. I think it's just an illness. And the interesting thing is, you know, the way I think God works sometimes, especially in California, watching people, everyone's going crazy with the toilet paper thing, which I still don't understand. We could do it like the Filipinos do. I've never seen my wife do this, but I saw a video where, and I forget what they call it, but it's like a bucket, a tiny little bucket, and water, and that's all you need. And your hand is all you need to take care of that stuff. I'm not that squeamish, so hopefully you're not eating with me. But people are getting ill. Like I would think maybe tissues, to blow your nose kind of thing might be an issue. Yeah, you could definitely log in. The only thing is, I hope I didn't use your name. I might have. I hope I just said Sister Sunshine. But if you don't want to be identified, you could probably do. If I used your name, I'm going to delete it. I don't think I did. Yeah, there's a lottie pot, something like that. Yeah, a lottie pot. There's always options. There's the front yard. There's grass. We could scoot. Like my lab pit Shadow. She has no problems without toilet paper. She doesn't have a lottie pot either. They called it something else. My wife would know. She's probably not on here. She's working from home today. And they're probably not letting her out early. But yeah, I'd like to hear your perspective on the goings on right now. I think you had a hangout, Sister Sunshine, fairly recently about the coronavirus, and I didn't get a chance to see that. But we could talk, anyway, going back to the biblical arguments I was getting into, here's an example of what a waste. Like if you're going to have this attitude where you're going to take the evidence and you're going to want to spin it in any way possible so that the Bible's not true, that's fine. You're free to do that, but don't say that you're like this great historian and you're out to search for truth. Now, you could argue the same, I guess, to me, because more likely than not, when I look at this stuff, some stuff that maybe I hadn't heard before, I'm probably going to skew it that way too. So I guess I can't be a hypocrite and blame. But when I first looked into this stuff, I was a non-believer for 37 years of my life. I was non-Christian, I should say. I believed in God. Most folks know my story. And but I did do some investigation, and when I was invited to a church to play as a musician, and I didn't believe, and I still was sort of. I remember talking to a couple of people that gave me the Sirks family in the parking lot of the church. They gave me a copy of Lee Strobel's Case for Christ, and they were talking, and I still said, there's so many things I can't get over. The virgin birth thing, stuff like that my wife and I, if I would make fun of that, would get into like little squabbles about. So I tried not to talk about it too much. And in the end, I looked at stuff. I read Case for Christ. I read, and then becoming a believer shortly after, reading a lot of things. Gary Habermas and Michael Licona, two great brothers who know their stuff with regards to, say, the resurrection. They wrote together a book called The Case for the Resurrection, and a lot of things. I learned a lot of new things from them, particularly some of the people, the evidence for Paul, the evidence for Jesus. But what's been a kind of a popular thing to do in the last couple of years is to kind of, in atheist community, is to just argue, what, Jesus never existed, prove it. But it's very rare that I come across somebody that says Paul didn't exist. Now, the majority of the New Testament's written by Paul. We have a number of the early Christian leaders who reference him all the time. And so this D.B. Sisko guy was saying, let's look at Acts and the book of Luke, which an average Christian would say, well, of course, those were both written by the physician Luke. Well, D.B. Sisko comes out and says it was not written by Luke. and I don't want to mess it up. I think you said either you said that there's evidence that was written. Luke and Acts were written for the Theophilus of Antioch, who was a church leader. I think a bishop, or do they call him a pope now or something in hindsight? I'm not sure, but the point was circa 180 AD. And that's like, what? Where does that come from? Well, where it comes from is because if you look at the beginning of Acts and you look at the beginning of Luke, the author, whoever he is, I think it was Luke, the author says, my dear, esteemed, something, there's like a word that it finds it honorable to a Theophilus. So the conclusion of this particular person who was arguing with me was to say that was the Theophilus of Antioch, as if Theophilus is like not a common name. Maybe it's not a common name, but I thought it was interesting because I make a point. Here's, again, God working, I think. So I look it up and I just think like, all right, if you look at the letters of Timothy, 1st and 2nd Timothy, we believe are written by Paul, and it's directed to somebody named Timothy. So I said, well, why isn't this Timothy of Alexandria in like around the time of the Council of Nicaea? So I can just blindly throw out that it was referencing that Timothy, and therefore it could not have been close in time to Jesus. It can't prove, or Paul, and it can't prove their existence, which could very well be silly. But the interesting thing that happened was the person who succeeded Timothy, and Timothy's sort of Timothy of Alexandria, I think it was, in like the 300s, late 300s, mid to late 300s. His successor was a guy named, wait for it, not the same one I've referenced before, Theophilus. So made that argument, and then all of a sudden the guy started the argument. We were doing different arguments, and then there was another argument regarding Clement. Clement is one of the early fathers of Christianity, believed to be. Encyclopedia Britannica says that he died in the 1st century, and I saw some references online that said he died in 99, like right at the end of the 1st century AD. And he says, no, that was written in 130. So that was written like 100 years after Jesus. And I'm like, okay. So I look up some of that stuff, but then I remember the same argument regarding Theophilus, of why this particular individual was saying Theophilus, it was a different Theophilus, is because he's named, the Theophilus is named in Luke and Acts. Clement is referenced in Philippians 4:3. So Philippians 4:3 is one of the 7 letters. Like there are a lot, there with 12, 13 letters from Paul, and there are 7 letters that most historians would say were actually written by Paul. There's questionable, but Philippians is one of the 7 that most scholars would say is written by the actual Paul. And it references Clement. So I could use in Philippians 4:3, we could use that to say that Clement and Paul probably had a connection. In the end, the idea that Paul didn't exist, which is what this person's trying to say, is so far afield, and he's trying to make it look like it's mainstream historian discussion. Might be mainstream atheist historian that was trying to discredit the Bible, I suppose, but certainly not mainstream history. Very, very, very few people doubt the existence of Paul. You could doubt the existence of Jesus because really, even the Bible just writes about majoritively just 3 years of his life. But Paul, it really references, when you look at Acts and the story of Acts, it really references like until his death, like some 3 decades, more likely than not. So he's attested. That was another comment I said. I said Paul's letters. Paul's probably the most attest his letters. We have the most copies of his letters, like in terms of letters, we have the most in antiquity. And the response to that was, oh yeah, no, you're a liar, because I know of 150 letters that we have from soldiers, plural, in Rome. And then the question is, well, how many soldiers? Is it 150 soldiers? So there's 150 different letters? Do we know whether? And so you totally, the point was up here. One of the comments I said, look up. Because we have letters written by Paul, one guy, so not two guys, one guy. And so one guy, we have many copies, and he presents 150 letters by presumably 150 soldiers. That's going to help? Probably not. All right. So Sister Sunshine says she'll be in chat in 2 more minutes. And let's see some of the comments. I think we're back to coronavirus. We're probably going to face a bunch of different kinds of bacteria and viruses coming out of those melting ice caps. That's interesting. And think about that. Do you think this disease comes from the melting ice caps? Like a long time disease that we haven't seen in thousands of years? As I stuff my mouth, Sister Sunshine. I stuffed my mouth. I'm mukbanging.
Uh-oh.
Have you heard of that before?
Oh, yes. Except for I thought you had to weigh at least 400 pounds to do that.
As 6 age might say, I'm getting close.
There you go.
And that's not true. Because the original ones, this is what I was looking at the origin of this. They're skinny, like Korean girls. And they eat these massive amounts of food. And I don't know how that's possible. They might, in the end, I figured they're probably throwing it up.
Oh, yeah. They're probably scarfing and barfing, as we used to call it.
That's the only thing I can imagine. The weirdest one that I saw, and that was when I decided to stop digging into the rabbit hole, was a girl. She bought all this stuff out of the seafood market that was still alive. Right? And she would like cook it there and then start eating it. But it was like a massive fish. She picked the ugliest animals that she could find. And she started chomping on them. And one was an octopus.
Gross.
May have been still wiggling.
The worst one I ever saw was it's a girl that's like anorexic and she wears a blindfold, and people have this weird conspiracy theory that she's a prisoner, you know, but I don't think so. I think she's just a weirdo. And she does that. She eats all this seafood, and it's disgusting though. You know what I mean? It's just disgusting. And it's pretty gross.
I'm so out of the loop on a lot of this stuff. And, you know, there's so many weird things on TikTok now, I guess. And
see, I stay away from TikTok. I have no interest in TikTok.
I don't have an account.
Me neither.
I'm trying not to. I'm hoping it goes the way of, what was the one that was a precursor, Vibe or something? Remember that?
Yeah.
Was that Vine? Yeah. So I never was a member of Vine either.
Yeah, I don't do any of that stuff. Pretty much I limit it to Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. That's about all I can handle. I'm old.
No, I'm with you, and I think that we're probably better than most with Instagram, at least.
Yeah.
So,
if I end up on one of those, you know, those true crime shows, you know, or whatever, the news article will not say Instagram model, because a lot of these girls that end up getting themselves murdered, you know, they were an Instagram model. That was their claim to fame. Which all of us are Instagram models.
It amazes me how our modern era, we've created a new job, occupation, influencer.
Yes.
So you just have to be pretty and not wear a lot of clothes, and you'll get a lot of money for advertising products.
That's right. You just kind of sit there naked. And then if you're like, let's say you're advertising, I don't know, Elmer's glue. You just sit there naked and you just hold some glue. There you go. And you are an influencer because you've influenced somebody out there to sniff glue.
Plumbers will pay you $45,000 to do that.
Yeah. I think the best one I saw, I've been following the Harvey Weinstein saga. You know, being here in LA, that you've gotta watch, right? And I had jury duty that same week that they were picking his jury, and so I was like, "Oh, this will be excellent if I make this jury," but I didn't. But anyway, so I saw this thing that some actress came out of the woodwork and claimed that, you know, he was horrible to her, and she dressed the wrong way for something, for some red carpet event, and he was saying, you know, I want the bleep bleep on the carpet or whatever, right? But yet the other pictures in the article showed her naked with her leg up in the air with an actual cat. You could guess the placement of the cat. And I thought, you know, it's really hard to take you seriously when you can, you know, when you're complaining about Harvey Weinstein wanting you to, you know, flash your goods on the red carpet when you're basically doing that, you know what I mean, for a living. I mean, let's face it, lady, we're not hiring you because of your astounding intellect, you know.
I'm about to, it's too bad it's on Facebook, so I'll probably make some enemies. I hope not. But because I see why, like, look, Weinstein is trashy, and what he did was trashy. But the story, particularly the woman, I think that was the primary victim in this case, I think there was one or maybe two. There was testimony from a guy who was friends with both, who is not friends with the victim anymore, but still friends with Harvey. So you can take him as maybe not independent. But he basically said, like, yeah, this woman contacted me just after it happened, and she wasn't remorseful, sad. She just called the gossip and say, you'll never guess what happened. And to me, there's an aspect of it, like, again, I'm not defending the guy. Obviously, he was using his position to take advantage of women. But I wonder if these women who are victims, if they became as successful as, say, Gwyneth Paltrow, would they even be out talking about it? Not to say Gwyneth had anything to do with Weinstein, but, you know, like, in other words, if their career took off as a result, which to me was probably their motivation, right?
Absolutely.
Would it matter?
Well, see, now as a woman, I'm less forgiving. I don't know, maybe because I'm an old woman, but, you know, I remember when I was raising my daughter, there was a few things that were written in stone, right? When I, you know, that I kind of told her as I was raising her. One of the things was, don't be alone with a man. You know what I mean? And it's not only for your own safety, but to protect your reputation. Now, to be fair, I told my sons the same thing. I don't want you alone with a woman, because she can make accusations that you can't defend yourself from. If it's just, you know, basically what I used to tell them is, if there's a man and a woman alone, the Satan's the third woman, the third person in the room. That was the way I used to tell them that.
You're the church lady.
Perfect. Yes. And, you know, and they were raised with that. You know, now, again, as an older woman, I don't feel I'm not really sorry for, you know, for any of these girls, because I think they all knew. If you're sent to a hotel room, you know, you're not going there for business. You know, I mean, especially if you've been in Hollywood for longer than about 2 minutes, you've pretty much got that figured out. I mean, most women, I would say by the time you've reached high school age, you've definitely had to fend off, you know what I mean, unwanted attention. I mean, I remember being a 13-year-old babysitter, you know what I mean? And I was having to fend off the dad of the kids that I babysat. You know, it's just part of the female experience, unfortunately. So they knew. There's one girl that claims that he raped her once, and then like 6 months later raped her again. Now, I'm sorry, but if you get raped by somebody, are you ever going to be alone with that person ever again? You know what I mean? Are you going to be in the same room as that person ever again? I would say probably not. I mean, because he's not like it's her father, or, you know what I mean? Like an incest situation. It's a work situation. I don't know. I think that it's part of the unwritten contract of Hollywood. I mean, the casting couch has been around forever. He was a powerful man in Hollywood. I don't think any of those girls weren't aware, you know what I mean, of this type of thing. I mean, I'm sure rumors had to have circulated around, you know. So was he a perv? Yeah. But you know what? There's a lot of guys that are pervy that'll, you know, take advantage of somebody, right? You know, that if they want sex, you know. And these girls, I think, wanted something too. And I think like Rose McGowan, she's nuts. She's certifiable at this point. So, you know, like the one story, remember the one, I think it's Rose McGowan that claims that they were in a hot tub and claims that she did, you know, wait, he was in a hot tub. You didn't just get up and walk away. You know what I mean? Like there was literally nothing holding you there. It's not like a, you know, violent against your will situation. He's naked in a hot tub. You're sitting on the edge of the hot tub. It would have taken very minimal effort to stand up.
It just goes, it's the sad thing from a legal perspective. It's the idea of when somebody's going to be convicted of a crime and you have to go beyond a reasonable doubt to convict somebody. The minute that you get somebody who's, like you said, in the situation that they put himself into, or repeating, in other words, that rape turned into a relationship. Now, that being said, I believe that a husband can rape a wife. I don't, you know, so it is possible if a woman says no and doesn't want to, that has to be, you know, that's sacrosanct and that is a crime. That's rape for doing
Sure.
it. But what makes it difficult is when, like you've pointed out, when it happens again 6 months later, or you continue communication and you have loving, like the victim in this case where Weinstein was convicted, they had loving communications.
Right.
After. And if that doesn't provide reasonable doubt.
I was shocked that he got convicted, actually.
Me too. Totally.
And I think any man out there should be shaking in their boots that any girl you had sex with, even in a consensual situation multiple years ago, now for whatever reason, whether it's, you know, and I actually think some of these, I live in LA. I'm cynical. I think some of these people are doing it just to get their name back in lights, you know. Any publicity, right, is good publicity. But any man out there, this means that anybody that you maybe didn't even have sex with, right? But any woman now apparently can just walk into any police station and say, hey, 15 years ago, so-and-so raped me, you know, and not have a rape kit, not have any eyewitnesses, not have any photographs, have no DNA, have no evidence at all, except for what you said happened. And that's enough to get you 23 years in prison?
Yeah, if you are like, because let's face it, you know, I don't judge by mere appearances, but we can't help ourselves. You look at the guy and he's gross.
Right.
And it's not like he got gross like me. Like I peaked at like 14, 15, which is why I was able to get this beautiful woman named Marie who hasn't changed since. If she met me now, it would be like Harvey Weinstein. She would want to touch me. But anyway, I'm digressing. But he's always looked that way. So you clearly see there's a beautiful woman actress who's going to be with him, even wanting to be in the, like, hey, come to my hotel room. Hey, I'm outside knocking on your hotel door. Let me in.
Right. It's like, who opens the door to that? Who opens the door to that? You know? Yeah. And if you have to go to a hotel room and you think, hey, you know, he might be putting the make on me and I'm not really down for that, you bring a girlfriend. He has no control. You can bring anybody you want and he's going to have to behave himself. I mean, right? When I was raising my kids, you don't go anywhere alone. You always, you know, it's a group thing, like group dating. You know, when my kids were younger, I never really approved of dating per se, but if they wanted to go out with somebody, you know, it was like you can go in a group situation, but you can't go by yourself. And it's got to be a public place, you know, whether it's a group, you know, going bowling or going to the pizza place, but there's no breaking off and going by yourself. I mean, these are things that back in my day anyway, every girl was taught. You know what I mean? Every girl was taught this because we didn't have this. Today, there's this weird concept that these young girls are being raised with, which is and I don't necessarily disagree, but, you know, they have this idea that I should be able to walk anywhere at any time and right, like I should be able to walk down the meanest street at 3 a.m. naked and nothing should happen to me. Well, yeah, in an ideal utopian world, people would keep their hands to themselves. But we live in the real world, which has real sin and real evil, and you just don't do stupid stuff.
And that is totally, it's appropriate. I think that we started talking a little bit about Instagram and influencers and stuff. And so we have millions of young girls right now in the Kardashian era who have seen that if all you have to do is be sexy,
right,
film sexy things, and you can be a millionaire. And so can your younger sisters who come up. I mean,
right.
The Kardashians exist because
she started with a sex tape.
Right.
Let's not forget where she started. Kim Kardashian made a sex tape with some rapper, so she's being rewarded for basically being in pornography,
And now she could come out and say that whoever that guy was that she was in that video with, she could come out and say, you know what, he asked me to do this and he asked me to videotape, but I really didn't want to.
Well, she's already done that.
So,
she's now claiming she's claiming that she was rolling on ecstasy. She's trying to claim now that she was on ecstasy when she made that film, that video.
Well, then that was rape, right? So she could come out and say she was raped.
Yeah, he's screwed if she ever decides, and there was a concept back when I was younger, basically regret sex. Okay. There are people that, you may have gone out and, I wasn't always a Christian. So, when I'm trying to think back to when I was in my early 20s, late teens, there was times, people would go to parties or people would be drinking or whatever, right? And they would hook up with somebody, let's say. And it wasn't somebody that they were necessarily really that into, but, they got carried away in the moment, let's say. Mm-hmm. We used to refer to that as regret sex. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you see the jokes all the time, right? About the one night stand and the person rolls over and after the beer goggles are off, it's like, oh my gosh, what have I got myself into? But people didn't cry rape. People just said, man, I hope nobody knows I went home with this guy, you know what I mean? Or this girl, and they moved on with their life. Now, because of social media and the fact that the media is rewarding people by giving them victimhood status, which seems to be like this big thing right now. Like everybody wants to be a victim. That's like their jam. So now we're rewarding people who make bad decisions, who put themselves in bad situations. And instead of taking responsibility, right, and saying, gee, maybe I drink too much, or gee, maybe I shouldn't get high, or maybe you know what I mean? Instead, now they can take that responsibility off their shoulders and they can have victimhood status. So now they get attention and validation for something when they're not really a victim. And the problem is this hurts real victims of rape. This hurts real women who really have been violently raped. Because
I was thinking of the woman, like the recent story with Cosby. I was thinking about Cosby. Like Cosby, he gave these women drugs. Like he did something actively, like roofing a woman to get them to get ultimately unconscious. Now, if there was proof that Weinstein did that, then I think that for me, it would be like, okay, it's a no-brainer.
Right.
I think that the Cosby decision was definitely justified. There's so many women, it was the same story. And he was a lucky man to have been able to get away with it for as long as he did. But Harvey, it was the simple casting couch thing that, like you said, it's been around for hundreds of years, as long as there's been film. And for him to have become, I mean, imagine the industry right now, how many scared men there are out there who are producers of film. That it's happened so many times. Yeah.
Well, and Harvey Weinstein, nobody said a word for how many decades, right? But as soon as the tide turned on him, and it became, the in thing, right? I mean, have we learned nothing from the Salem witch trials, right? Women were actually hung and killed because of a mob mentality and a hysteria. The Salem witch trials were kind of a Me Too situation, right? Because everybody jumped on the bandwagon and said, me too, I've been a victim of the devil, me too. And innocent people died. And I think we're going to see this. Weinstein, I hope, gets off on his appeal. I mean, yeah, he's a scumbag, but I don't think he raped anybody. I think that he maybe used coercive tactics. But
he used his status. He's a dirtbag.
Right.
There's no doubt about that. Everyone that does that is a dirtbag, but everyone knows what that is.
Right.
I find
The host muted me. What did I do?
you were making some noise in the background. What do you
No, I
do?
said, well, I mean, it's like, what the heck's up? No, there's wind blowing through the house. Daggone, thou shalt not suffer. You know the story. If
Thou shalt not suffer
the witches,
to live.
that's it. I mean, wait a minute. Who the heck eats spaghetti with chopsticks? So I know. Thick Shades invented the daggone noodles, the spaghetti. I know all about it.
Yeah, he's my friend.
That's true. I'm glad to see you're eating with chopsticks. I was eating with them last week. They are good.
Do you eat with chopsticks?
I want to see you eat them with the stainless steel ones, Korean style. Those are the ones that are hard to do.
We I don't know if we have plastic ones at home, I think. But my wife trained me a long time ago. I think I've been using chopsticks since like the mid 80s. So
I can drink coffee with chopsticks.
Keith Chumley's probably not watching anymore, but Keith is a guy that I went to college with. He's my fraternity brother, and I was his RA. He lived on my hall, so it's good to see you, Keith. He's now like a high-powered doctor living in Malibu or something.
Uh-oh.
What are you doing on Facebook? What am I doing on Facebook? All right, well, welcome, Keith. My mom said you'll like this. Talking with your mouth full, son. Mom here. Well, Mom, that's the whole purpose of the mukbang. In fact, I'm not talking my mouth.
You're on Facebook. Holy heck.
Yeah, you're on Facebook. So
do you like eating soup? Do you like eating soup with chopsticks?
Well, no, that's why I have one of these. What do they call these?
No.
What do they call these?
Do you know how you know what you're supposed to do? You're supposed to eat everything you can with your chopsticks. When at the end, you pick up your bowl and you drink out of it. And that, I think, that makes me feel proper.
Yeah. We'll talk
and it's enjoyable.
There's my friend Scott. I haven't seen him in a while. We don't need ice cap germs. Mutation is much more likely to be an issue than some frozen caveman virus. I don't know.
I have to ask. Can I ask you something? I can't stay long, but I have to ask you guys a quick question when you're done.
Is it going to be Bible?
Well, that's been amazing lately, I have to admit. I have people making me actually look up the deity of Christ, and I chose the book of Mark just because I know it's a book that they probably will accept. Out of the 4 Gospels, they suggest going to the Gospels. Never mind Paul's writings, so I'm like, okay, good. We'll go to the book of Mark because that one is the earliest and the one that even the Jesus seminar doesn't fight too much over it. So I figured, okay, well, I'll go with. That's why I went to Mark. But I do find it interesting. We're still arguing over things, and that Jesus didn't claim to be Emmanuel, all kinds of stuff. And I'm just like, oh, geez, are you guys sure you really want to get into this? I don't even know. I don't know what, but I can certainly read the words in it.
Yeah, you can't say that Scripture doesn't say it. You can say, I don't believe any of that. I think that was a fantasy fiction writing. That's fine. But
or
don't
you question
say
it, whatever. But to just say that it doesn't say that, it's like, well, okay, so in Mark, I can find areas, but again, he healed, he did this, he did that. He's that the word kurios, what do you want to call it, Messiah, whatever.
Christos, yeah.
Well, no, I'm thinking Lord. Christos, yeah. And I'm like, it's Messiah, not Kurios. Yeah. That's totally different. Yeah, Christos. And I'm like, when it applied to Jesus, a guy that raised the dead, he healed, he did this according to the Bible. So that's my point, is this is not just some other king or leader or something that was given that name. So it's kind of ridiculous. But aside from that, the Lord Trump, no, I'm picking.
Trump?
Yeah. I have to ask, though, what did you think of his speech? Or his talk, and
which
all the
one?
other people who spoke? The most recent one, at least that I know of, were he had people from Walmart on there. I truly respect that, just like drinking from the bowl when I'm done. But no, but sorry, but no, I CVS, Target. I mean, Google. I mean, there's Amazon. I mean, there's a lot of power people with money, I think, trying to help. That's what I see.
what I saw, it's mukbang. That's why I can talk with my mouth full. I actually liked his first speech that he gave to the nation a couple nights ago, but I didn't hear.
Like he's sick though.
He made, yeah, no kidding. He made some comment though. He said something that kind of belittled the situation again. I can't remember that everyone was focused on. People in my office who were more liberal. I can't remember what it was. It was like the whole speech was awful because of one thing he said, and I bet he went off.
Oh, he got the imports instead of people. He was saying goods or something, and then he had to make a correction that he meant that they were going to stop people from Europe, but not goods.
Yeah, but it wasn't. There are a few things that I find weird. I remember kind of what it was. It was sort of belittling. There was a word used that belittled the people who died already. I can't remember. It was like, sort of downplaying what was going on.
Well, they're already dead. Why even worry about it?
Let's face it. The facts. It's going to be bad.
Okay, go ahead.
We're in for a bad time.
Here's where it got political and it got annoying to me was when he said, we're closing down. There's going to be nobody coming in from Europe, except if you're from the UK. If you're from the UK, somehow there's this magical immunity that British people have. And that was the weird thing.
Well, then,
I know
what it might be, though? Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Is it possible that it has something to do with that the UK was doing a good amount of testing?
Well, it was Brexit. He's trying to reward them for Brexit because he's not a globalist. And when the UK pulled out of the EU, Brexit, they call it, that, what I mean? I believe that's what he's saying is he's trying to send that message, right?
But weren't they doing a lot of testing? Maybe other countries are too, but my understanding is England was at least trying here in the last.
I have relatives that could be watching. It's only 11:30 in England, so if you're around, let us know. But as far as I know, they're no different than, obviously it's not as bad in the UK as it is in Italy right now.
Oh,
it will be. It will be. We're about a week or two behind. So,
well, Raj Marwa here, who I have up here, I think, I don't know exactly where he is right now. He's always anywhere. I met Raj. He's on Facebook. I met him on a cruise in the Mediterranean. One of the coolest guys ever. And I liked him so much that we're Facebook buddies after a 2-week trip. We play poker every night. And I think he's in Austria, so it'd be an interesting perspective if he feels like writing about it. So, but I don't think that because England could be doing a better job, it's the reason we're shutting down Europe anyway, is because it's everything's kind of up in the air. We really don't know what it's going to look like in the U.S. in 2 weeks.
I can guarantee you what it's going to look like.
Well,
I think it's going to be unpleasant at best.
To be quite honest, if instead of watching the media, which I understand there were valid points on both sides, whatever, but I looked at this guy named John Campbell. He's a doctor, has a doctor's degree in nursing, and another one I watched was MedCam, and I watched them throughout this whole thing, and then obviously going to the WHO and CDC and such. John Hopkins, whatever, things that I thought were credible. But, sadly, a month ago, I knew where we were going to be based on those guys. They weren't, they're not they're not off flipping out. They're not saying it's nothing. They were pretty much as much fact as they could get and based on other countries and how they're doing in Asia. And then, of course, then looking at Italy and such, and you couldn't know anything much about Iran. Well, eventually we did. I think we got an idea with Iran, got caught up a bit. But, it kind of predicted everything,
Well, the thing is, like I told people when this was getting started, you can't trust anything coming out of China or Iran for numbers. But we can gauge a pretty good, estimate based on Italy because they are pretty much, equal to us in their healthcare system.
Yes, but you also have to consider that in China they did allow people to come in and observe things and work with them, as best of my understanding, and they've been reporting. So, and we do have satellites and such. So I kind of have a hard time believing that, that some of these stories of, thousands of bodies being burned every day and it's hovering cloud, flying or going over to all of Asia because they're, mass. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't appear to be the case. I'm hearing some really wacko stuff.
Yeah, but those clouds were only over 2 locations, and they contained particulates that are equal to the burning of organic matter. So,
according to who?
Huh?
According to who?
What do you mean according? I think it was pretty well established, right? That they found evidence.
No, I'm asking who and how many the bodies, and is it in relation to the amount we would expect to die, or is it just, in that situation where it's just made up stuff to freak everybody out and not trust anything that the Chinese say? You know what I mean? To me, it became very bizarre. And
I think the country was embarrassed. So because they did that already with SARS or something else. But I don't think it's like this grand, awful thing. I don't think that some of the stories that were out about mass burnings and stuff, I think that Sister Sunshine, I know you're going to disagree because I think you were the one that posted most of them.
Yeah, I don't go with it. I'm not saying it's impossible. I just don't.
Yeah, but I
don't base my.
The thing is, like, we can make lighter of it as I have, but what really, struck a chord with me is the fact that, all right, maybe we're not in the demographic where we have a huge amount to worry about, although I know you've had some health issues, Sister Sunshine, so I'll keep praying for that. And Mr. Bruce, I know you smoke and you drink too much coffee.
I don't smoke much, though.
All right, good. Only when you're online.
Oh boy, yeah, that is particularly bad. Although I have been trying to cut back, and I'm having.
He's going to light up. You're going to hear the light up. The lighter's going to go in about 30 secones.
Well, I think
what's the sound?
But anyway, the point I want to make is that like
you can hear this, like when I go.
See, there it is.
Yeah.
My father-in-law is 84, or I think they just turned. And my family, my parents are in their 70s. My mother-in-law's in her 70s. So we have to be like, if I think I'll be okay, my health is mostly good, I'm going to be around people that aren't. And there are people at my church that, they're in their mid-90s. We have 2.
Yeah.
So we have a responsibility for those people as well. So I would encourage people who are watching this, if people, like I'm going to ask, I'm sure we have people in our church doing it, but the people that I'm around, like the woman in the 90s, if they show up to church this weekend, I'm going to ask them if they need anything at the grocery store. For instance, there was an interesting story that's gone viral today of a young woman that she saw an old lady crying in her car in the parking lot of a grocery store. I don't know if you saw the Sister Sunshine.
Mm-mm.
And she's crying because she's too afraid to go out. And a woman fortunately saw her and said, "Can I help you?" And she said, I don't feel like I can go out. I'm afraid that I'm going to catch this. So she ended up sneaking $100 bill out of a crack of her car, and that woman went and bought her groceries.
Wow.
But we need to look out for the infirm and our older people. And so we have to consider this serious. So I'm glad that we are. In fact, you guys might not know because you're not in the circle, but you've probably heard the LAUSD is closing down for 2 weeks after Monday. But as of yesterday, I'm a Little League coach, and we shut down the Little League for until April 13th.
Yeah. Well, I got a call from my doctor this morning because I'm supposed to go in and have a elective sinus surgery done, right? And I was scheduled, which I'm thinking I may reschedule it. But I was supposed to go and get an EKG done and stuff, the pre-op stuff. And my doctor's office called me today, and they said we're canceling all of our appointments for 30 days because of the virus. So, the thing is we have to remember, like, where there's been a big talk on Facebook, people freaking out about, well, there's no test. What good is a test going to do you?
Well, actually, tests, I agree with you, and that's what I heard before. That the thing that tests do, though, is that if somebody does test positive, then they can at least what can't I think?
Yeah, but if you're sick, you should be doing that anyway. You know what I mean? And you can have the test.
Why? What? Wait a minute. Why? It's just a normal flu. People aren't going to do that. And the other issue, if they couldn't afford it, people don't do that. If you have the flu, man, and you need money and you have to be at work and they depend on you being there, you're going to go. And so to me, or if they're just getting over it a bit, or they think they're okay, it's like been 2 days since they were sick, they're feeling a little better, they're going to go out. And so in that sense, I think the tests are very important.
But what happens if I get a test today and it's negative, right? But then 2 days from now, I get exposed, but I have a false sense of security because I had a negative test.
I get you. But you see, the issue is, and this is what I've been listening to these guys say for the last month or so, it's simply we cannot handle a spike. We do not have medical capabilities to do it. And if we can't stop it, but we can slow it down and have a more smooth, even curvature, and therefore we can medically deal and help more people. And so if you know who has it and who doesn't, at least you're not a spreader then. You know what I mean? I mean, to me, that's what's important about it.
But see, in a pandemic situation, you have to assume everyone has it. That's really the only safe way to approach it.
Well, then everybody will have to stay inside and can't go out at all. When that's not, I've already got you guys beat. But you see, the thing is, speaking of though, I better get back to work. But yeah, so
Raj Marwa says, as a born third world person, he's Indian. It's inspiring to see a chubby American eating so heartily. Well, that's good. Thank you, Raj. But Raj had some stuff that he's got the perspective. India and Australia have also put restrictions on EU arrivals. He's in Vienna, by the way. He says coronavirus exploding in Italy. Yeah, we know that. And they're pissed off. EU's not helping them. China, on the other hand, just landed there with medical teams and 31 tons of medical equipment. I think he's making a joke. And then the fact that he's a smoker, 72 years old with diabetes 2, high risk, send private jet. You have the wrong American friend here. No private jet here, unfortunately.
Yeah. See, that's really scarily if they start having to, which they will, okay, start having to dole out, right? Because Italy, the doctors there are finding themselves in a situation where they're having to basically decide, okay, who is going to get this very precious ventilator? Who's going to get this level of care and who isn't. So if you're 72, I can guarantee you're off the list already. Myself, I'm going to be off the list. Rob, I hate to say it, but you're overweight. That's a comorbidity. You're off the list.
Really?
I just want to say again, though, the reason they're doing this, though, and we probably should have been at it earlier, it's my opinion, is so that we don't end up in that situation, or if at all, it would be minimal to be making those choices.
Well, we could avoid it if everybody would just stay home. But that there's going to be a large number of people who are not going to do that. You've got the people
stayed home couldn't make masks in America. I mean, what are we going to do? Some people have to go to work.
But see, that's the problem. Is I think that if I was president, okay, I would probably just put a stop on all of the economic issues, kind of like how Italy has done, where they've frozen mortgages, they've frozen, right? So people no longer have that excuse to go out. Well, I have to go out because I have to make a living. Just freeze everything right where it is.
Well, what if you want to go to the grocery store? What if you want to do this?
See, but that's the thing. There are grocery delivery services. Now, I saw this coming, so I prepped. I've got enough months in my house without going out.
If you have it and you did have to go out, you could wear a mask so that if you cough or hack, you don't get it all over everybody else. I don't know. It's been working in Asia. They seem to be. Maybe I'm wrong.
But they let one person from the household who's well go out once every week or every so many days. So, and they're also practicing social distancing, and they had food distribution. So, in theory, if we were going to do it right, we would simply have, back in the day, right, we used to have community watch captains and all that. We don't have that anymore. But ideally, you would have some kind of centralized food distribution program, and maybe leave a parcel on everybody's doorstep or something like that. I mean, in the event of a serious outbreak,
Well, that could happen. I understand.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, it's going to be bad. Look at all the people that are going to be the worried.
In China, they got it under control, and they were people were still outside and doing some things. Or am I wrong?
But see, look at America, though. We have a real sense of entitlement in this nation, and our entitlement extends to healthcare. So you're going to have a lot of people that are not sick, but because they have a sniffle or because they are the worried well, they're going to go to testing centers. They're going to go to the emergency room, et cetera, because they want the test, right? They want that test. Well, so then they're going to get infected going to places. Plus, they're going to slow down all the mechanisms in our healthcare delivery system. I mean, our emergency rooms right now, our hospitals run at close to 100% census at any given time. So
we could do like China did and just put in those incinerator things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, on a good day, if you go to the emergency room, right, you're still there for hours. Now, part of the reason you're there for hours is because there's people there that shouldn't be there, that are slowing it down. Plus, there's no beds many times because they're holding people in the emergency room because they're waiting for an upstairs bed or an ICU bed, but they can't send them because either they don't have the bed or they don't have the nurses to man the bed. So everything slows down. Now, in the event of this, when this really starts to hit, within about 72 hours, our health delivery systems are going to be completely overwhelmed.
Well, I understand, but this is why they are setting them up in hotels, motels, whatever, and probably in some colleges. Who knows where all that's going to be?
Who takes care of them is my point.
But people
and you've only got so many respirators, and some of the people end up having to have ECMO, which is where they take the blood and oxygenate it outside the body.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
If you don't have the nurses, you don't have the doctors to take, the respiratory therapists, right?
But I think that we have made a good move in the sense that if churches, I think most churches are shut down. People aren't going to be going to churches. If you're over 250, I think it should be 50, and it should be relative to the size of the building. I don't even know if even if you have 20 or 30 people, it'd be smart to be going and hugging and whatever.
Lifehouse is still open for business, so it'll be interesting how what happens this weekend for our church if we're going to just be singing to ourselves on the worship team. It'll be
I don't think it's wise, but you're not supposed to put the Lord your God to the test. That's my thought. But it does seem to me though that people are making an effort to try, at least, And I do understand about people not going out at all, but
I don't think people are making an effort. I still think we haven't moved past our entitlement yet.
I think the day that things changed was the day, because the panic wasn't really realized. You went out and there wasn't really, when you went outside, you didn't feel that there were, at least in Los Angeles, that there were many people thinking about it. Forrest Gump gets it, and NBA is canceled. And then all of a sudden the dominoes fell, and now it's all anyone's thinking about.
Well, that's because it's the idols of the people, right? These people are quote unquote idols. If their false gods can be taken down,
Well, whatever it takes. Like one of the things I said in California watching as Danger Key sees the TP situation as a metaphor. Everyone's worried about their own ass. He's right.
Well, but. Look, you can use. Oh, wait. Now I feel kind of bad, but I suppose small plates, clamshells, whatever. That's look. We survived without toilet paper for millions of years, or 10,000, 6,000.
Water or grass.
And we've got leaves and stuff. Well, the leaves aren't growing on the trees yet. I don't know. Cut just one little square out of your bedspread like every day. It should last a while. Eventually, you'll be out of a bedspread, but blankets, whatever, but coats.
Or your white bedspread will be, you'll have a brown one. So,
okay, on that case, I'm going to take off.
Doctors are already admitting they're having to choose which people to save, like they had to in wartime. Yeah, I'd heard that.
What is it called? I think it's called the Three Wise Men or the Three Wise Kings. Is what they call that. It's where you have to look at it's how you portion out care.
Well, you know that firsthand because you're a nurse, right? By trade, so triage and stuff, right?
You know
Did you
what?
do emergency work?
What's that?
Did you do emergency work at all?
That's why I can tell you point blank, things are not going to go well.
Wait, we're beyond selective breeding now. They're going to be like just getting rid of all the ugly people. Holy heck. All right.
Well, wait until the first
I'm out.
celebrity dies.
Well, then that means,
Right?
ladies and gentlemen, this will be our last broadcast ever.
I know.
So
I'm pretty worried. I'm pretty worried now. I got to go. All right. Have a good evening.
you'll be okay.
Don't panic. Remember, take it from me. Don't panic. All right. Don't be nervous.
Stay indoors.
Take
Stay
care.
indoors.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, don't go outside.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Well, I long said watch Italy for what's going to happen there, because that's our preview. You know, their health delivery system was overwhelmed pretty much immediately. So, you know, that's going to happen here. I mean, you know, sad to say. And I see, and what's sad is I see a lot of people that are younger that have this attitude of, well, it only affects old people. You know, so it kind of shows it's exposing a little bit of an uglier side of our youth obsessed culture. But a lot of these same youth that think that they're, you know, of course they've got the hubris of youth, right? They think they're not going to be at risk, but yet they smoke, they vape, they're overweight. You know, 45% of adults here in the United States are overweight. That's a comorbidity. So it's going to be ugly. You know, this is going to be ugly. Now, even if, and people say, well, you know, the flu is more deadly. No, it's not. This is much more deadly than the flu. The flu kills 1 out of 1,000. This is killing. And I think the latest number out of Italy was 6 out of 100 are going to die. So, you know, that's not good. You know what I mean? That's not a good situation.
I don't know if it's comparable in the sense that it's so much smaller than we are. I mean, you might say, well, then that means ours is going to be so much worse. But I don't know. I think that because it's so much smaller, and I think that well, I don't know, because the city's here, right?
We have undetected communal spread right now. That's the problem too.
Raj says Jesus loves you. He does, Raj. You need to know him. And this is exactly, we're a fallen world. Jesus didn't plant this thing on here. Some baddies did. And the only hope that we have in a world like this of problems is Jesus. So good night, my friend. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. So here's an interesting question by Pastor G, who's reestablished his YouTube channel. So check him out if you can. That's not Pastor the George Cook that we know. This is another Pastor G. He's using G now. So if you remember him, if you look at the picture, but if you've been on YouTube for 10 years or so, you probably know him. So check him out. He says, where do you guys see us as a nation a month from now? I'm going to be less apocalyptic than Sister Sunshine. So Sister Sunshine can start.
Well, if things play out, if we follow a similar pattern as Italy, I think in a month from now, pretty much every person is going to be affected by this. They're going to have lost someone. You know, they may not have gotten ill themselves, but they will have said goodbye to a parent or a grandparent or, you know, a friend, a coworker. I think a month from now, people are going to be sobered by this, because I think that we're going to all feel a loss. You know what I mean? It's inevitable. I also think that we're going to go through a period of some lawlessness, because we have a sense of entitlement in this country. And when push comes to shove, and when people can't get the treatment at the hospital, right? In Italy, if somebody gets triaged out, they're kept comfortable with morphine and, you know, some oxygen support, right, as they die. Now, are we going to have that here in a month? Because remember, we're going to be hit by shortages of medications because our medications are from China. So because we're a little bit farther behind on this, are we going to have medications to keep people comfortable? Or are we going to have to be portioning out medications as well? Are people basically going to be left to die old school, you know? And when that happens, what are people with guns and entitlement issues going to do? Right now in emergency rooms, on a normal day, there are people that get out of control, for whatever reason. They can't control themselves and they threaten people and whatnot. Now take that to somebody whose mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, spouse is dying, and they see it as they're being refused care. Now they may say it's because of my race, or it's because I'm poor, or it's because of this, it's because of that, but they're going to then justify lashing out. So I suspect we're going to see some shootings. I suspect that we're going to see looters. There are people, again, that are going to use this as an excuse to be lawless, because we have a different society than a homogenous society. In Italy, most of the people there are Italian. In China, right, the group overrides the individual. Here, the individual overrides everything, and we are not homogenous. So I suspect we could really see some fracturing, and we're going to see people. We've already politicized it. There's already people that have seriously politicized this. We're going to see people that are going to try to gain from the sorrow of others. So in a month from now, I think there's going to be death, unrest, and unfortunately, it's going to be up to, what direction that actually sets us off. I don't know.
Well, I'm going to take the non-apocalyptic. That's why we got the bad news first. I think you would be correct if this was like Ebola. Now, because that's not to say that we're going to have problems in the emergency rooms where they're too packed, and hopefully people. I'm hopeful that people will understand. Look, this is bad, but I see that there's an 85-year-old gasping for breath over there. All right, please get them in. I feel horrible, but I'll go back home. I think that there's going to be a level of cooperation that we can be positive about. My mom asked any positives coming from this, because it's not Ebola. Now, if it was Ebola, I think we could be as a fatalist. It's not. It's probably 2%, 3% that we're that are going to get affected by this. I don't think everyone is going to feel lost from this. I actually see this. I was alluding to this before from California, seeing everyone panic and go and create emergency kits and things. I think if anything in California, it's sort of God's way to get us prepared for a future thing that could potentially be disastrous. So hopefully that's not coming too soon. But bigger than that, positive. So again, I don't see in a month from now the same thing you do. And so obviously I'm sure you hope that I'm right too.
Oh yeah. I mean, I would hope that people would rise to the challenge, but just having dealt with people and the human condition, I'm not as hopeful for humans.
The biggest positive that I think will come out of this, the sort of anti-science, anti-vax people, when they see that the thing that we're waiting for to stop, the reason why there's so much panic here is because we don't have a vaccination, because we've never found something, because people don't have a defense to this, that maybe people who are on the anti-vax side, which I think is horribly detrimental to society, they will now shift back to reasonableness and make sure that their children get vaccinated, that they get vaccinated. And I hope that they will be in line when these vaccinations come out. And that's what is going to happen. All these nations, and Trump and Pence, they're not stupid. And the people they had talking today, the people from Quest, the people that test, all these things right now, probably much more fanatically than the people looking for toilet paper. These organizations, because they're probably getting a ton of money, they're trying to get those vaccinations together. I imagine they figured it out mostly, and now it's just a matter of we're pretty close, and then mass producing it, but especially getting the tests. So we know that the United States in particular has done very good things in the last week or so to get these tests created. I don't know if they'll be distributed, but I think because of the panic now, because everyone is now closing shop all over the place, that in the end, I think everything will be okay. And I think
your optimism is, I mean, it's encouraging, but I don't see it. I think the soonest we're going to see a vaccination is about 18 months out, if they can even develop one, because you've got this virus so far has mutated. So
there's twice. No, there's just one mutation. There's like 2 different versions of it, and they're not concerned about that because that happens with flu and influenza and all these things.
Right.
What happens is, it's not. In other words, it's not AIDS. So AIDS, when it would do stuff, it would mutate so that it could not be treated. That's not what's happening right now. It's the mechanisms that will be. We're not worried about whether we're going to be able to get a vaccine. We're just worried about whether the infirm and the elderly are going to catch this thing before we can catch up to it. So I mean, certainly the best thing, because I trust that. And you're a believer, Sister Sunshine. I trust and I have hope in Jesus and hope in God that God's got this all under control. And that we haven't seen an Antichrist yet, as far as I can tell. Some might say Obama, some might say Trump, right? Depending on what side. But no, if the Antichrist was here, everyone would love him. And I don't like Trump and you don't like Obama. So we know that neither one of them are Antichrist. And
so if this was a judgment, the judgment in the book of Revelation is going to take out like a third of mankind. And this doesn't have that level of extinction. Now, is the Lord allowing natural consequences? Whether this is a natural consequence of these, practices in these so-called wet markets, or whether this is a bioengineered virus, which I think it came out of that lab in Wuhan. I really do. I think this is something that they weren't planning on happening. And I want to know.
There's misinformation out there, because the latest one that's out there, and I don't know if you forwarded this one, but I did see it on Facebook, was about some Harvard scientist who was arrested. The thing I saw today was he was arrested yesterday. Let me put that in quotes. And they're saying that it's connected with him creating this virus in China, in Wuhan. All of that's not true. The scientist that they're mentioning, some Charles something or other is his name. You'll probably end up seeing this. Don't post it if you haven't yet. That he was arrested in late January for doing something that had nothing to do with Wuhan. The misinformation that we get, that's the worst part about social media. And that's why we end up panicking about this stuff. But in the end, going back to what I said, because God is in control.
What I find interesting is
this isn't the end of the world, and we're acting like it is.
The Israelis have actually made some progress, right, on this virus. So I want to know if all the anti-Semites are going to refuse this vaccine. Are they going to stick to their value system, or are they going to happily take their Israeli made vaccinations? Because, people love to hate on Israel until Israel saves their bacon time and time and time and time again, right?
Did you say until Israel saves their bacon? You meant to say challah or krepla. Not their gefilte, not their bacon.
Right, there you go. But I mean, really, and it's, I don't know. I just, I hope that this doesn't go sideways on us, but looking at what's happening in Italy, I don't know. I think that there's a real possibility that this could get ugly.
I think we have a better medical system than Italy, but maybe that's me with my Trumpian American exceptionalism.
Well,
right?
we're 33rd in the world. We stand ranked at 33 for our health delivery system. Now but we know we don't have enough beds. Right. What I'm wondering is how many ventilators and so on and so forth does our government have? Because, the CDC, FEMA, all of these organizations are supposed to be prepared for this type of, eventuality. Right. I mean, we've always known that there could be a super flu. So, that's what's going to be interesting is, unfortunately, I'm not really impressed with our government's response to this.
I just think I'm not impressed with the attitude of our president before. And obviously, what I like to see from him, we just don't. And unfortunately, this is just what you get from narcissists. And I think to be a leader of a nation, you have to be a narcissist. It's
absolutely.
Trump is a capital N. What I like to hear him say is I was wrong. You're never going to see him say that. And that would make it easier for me to swallow the delay. The delay is the problem. It was just a week ago or 2 weeks ago when Trump was saying, well, we got 15 cases, 15 deaths. We're going to watch that swiftly go down to zero. No problem. Nothing to worry about. And now, a week or two later, we're like, wait a minute. Now there's a problem, and he should say that if he owned it, I would be able to. I actually like that he's doing something now. I at first was making jokes about Pence being put in charge, mainly because Trump in 2014 put down Obama for putting somebody in charge of the Ebola. I will say, not to make this political, but everyone who pays attention knows that the Trump administration cut key CDC programs substantially. In fact, I think the thing that Obama put in place regarding infectious disease and potential pandemic, I think he created a little mini agency as a result of, if you remember, the Ebola situation. And Trump in 2018 demolished that if that was around at the time this was happening, things would have been a little quicker. We would have had somebody instead of Pence, would have already been right on it right away. It's an issue of money, so it's diversion, and priority. Better to pay for the wall than worry about a pandemic that probably won't happen. And then unfortunately for Trump, it happened. So I can't fault, when the government makes decisions and they make decisions a certain way and certain priorities, we can't fault them. At least they're doing something now. So I'm happy about that. And so Teresa C said, and this is the problem that's happening even with me, because yesterday I felt like a little feverish, and I sheepishly come back home to my wife and say, can you stay away from me? She said it too. It's so funny. We each see each other and we're like, just stay away. And the funny thing was that she's making tacos, right? And when we have tacos, it's like my mom will relate to this, because the way we have tacos is like I did when I was a kid. Beans and cheese, and in other words, your hands are putting everything together. And so I go, really? You're saying that you're sick and you're right now chopping up lettuce with your hands? I washed them. Okay, but maybe there's some that you just spit on your blood, what? Right. So she says, stay away, because I feel a little feverish. She takes my temperature and it's 98.2 or whatever, it's like, meh. So we start to panic, and it's like Teresa saying, mind you, I coughed in my local supermarket and I had more personal space than I could ever hope for. That's a good one. But she says that she's having to self-isolate just because she has a seasonal cough. We all cough, and they say that the coronavirus is a dry cough, and I've had a dry cough a few times in the last few days. So I don't know. Do I have it? I sure hope not, because I would have exposed a lot of people to it, I think. But we'll find out. This next week is going to be, the next 2 weeks are going to be wildly interesting, because particularly, I'm thinking about the Little League and all of that gone that far.
I'm concerned about the community spread. The people that are walking around that don't know they've been exposed, and they're already shedding virus, but they don't have any symptoms yet. So, that's the thing. It's like, have we, some people are estimating, that there's hundreds of thousands of people that have already been exposed in the community. Part of the problem is we don't have a patient zero. I don't think China ever found their patient zero. So it's kind of like it just, emerges. And we don't have any way to trace it back. We don't have any way to say, this is how fast it's spreading and this is how it's spreading, because it's popping up everywhere, So that's
a good weekend. Sorry, that's what I was pointing at if you got a little weird. We do have, I think I know who this is. I'm going to guess Mr. C. Welcome, Mr. C. Mr. Bill.
Oh, you know who it is, and I'm being most cordial tonight, most cordial. So you can suffer me for a little while, can't you, Sean?
No, that's okay. How are you?
No, I'm good. Yeah, I'm just in like all this like coronas and everything else going on, and the mad hype and people buying toilet rolls. It's quite bizarre.
I'm sure that you made sure to get all of the potential ingredients for beer, so that when the end of the world happens, at least we could all go to your place for homemade spirits.
Well, yeah, at least exactly. Things if things really go diabolical,
Well, to fly to the UK, so
at least Trump is still allowing flights between the UK and America. Forget about Europe. At least I think perhaps it could be because of the beer, because the beer has got so much goodness in it. It could be like the antioxidant.
Your blood is ironclad, and so in my case, unfortunately, since it's only my father's genes, my blood is only 50% ironclad, so I've still got a 50% increase. Unfortunately, then
you can increase.
I need to make my own beer.
Well, yeah, that's a start. It has to be natural. You can't be doing none of this pharmaceutical kind of rubbish. I'm not being disrespectful to America or other places. Pretend beer. I'm talking pure barley, hops, just natural water, and that's literally all you need. You don't need sugar. You don't need preservatives. You don't need nothing. You just give the ingredients that God has given you. Make a nice, good old beer. Get it fermented right there, because there's a right. And you're laughing. You're getting low cholesterol, because barley lowers your cholesterol. The hops is antibacterial and antiviral, and it's got like enzymes in it that break down all carcinogens and stuff like that. I tell you, real traditional beer, like real wine, is good stuff. The problem is with alcohol nowadays being produced by massive companies, they're pumping in chemicals, pumping in rubbish, that's making people angry, aggressive, and all sorts of problems. That's not good for your health. It's got to be natural.
All joking aside, because I was hoping we get somebody from the UK here, because you said that you're happy that Trump has not stopped flights from the UK to the United States, and it was suggested by Bruce earlier that maybe that's because Britain has put a lot of restraints on people coming in there and done a lot of things to make us in America feel safe, right? So what is going on in the UK that should make us feel safe that you could fly here tonight?
Well, for starters, again, this is the only thing because if I was American, I would be Republican, but the only thing I think the Republicans have got actually right is that idea of a national health service. We have a national health service. It's got its problems, it's got its faults, but everything is literally free of charge. You know, whether I've got an ongoing condition and it's going to take 30 years of medications and stuff, it's free. Okay, whether I've got a virus in me, I can get tested literally right now. I can walk out of my house, drive to they call them open surgeries, because you have doctors, hospitals, and open surgeries, which are 24/7. I can walk in there and I can say, I'm feeling a bit ill, got a bit of a temperature. Literally that very minute, I will get tested for whatever thing they want to test. I'll say, I think I might have the coronavirus. Boom, I'm tested. It goes straight to the labs, and it's done within 3 hours. I'd know there and then. So again, that's the only problem I see with America. You haven't, and you should have, been one of the richest countries on earth. There's no reason you haven't got a national health service. We're only about 5th or 6th richest in the world, and we can afford it. Everyone is treated, whether you got cancer, whether you got influenza, don't matter what you are. You don't need no money. You're ill. You go to the hospital. You're treated. End of subject. That's it. And America should have that. That's my only real angst with America. It might not just be Republican, but it's my angst with America that you've got so much money. There's no reason to not have a national health service where at the point of any need or any insecurity or any ill health, you can go literally, boom, to the doctors, test you there and then, give you what you need, job done. There's no need for a rich country to deprive people of such, I believe.
There is a there's a potential presidential candidate, one of the three really remaining right now, who wants health care for all. I agree with you. When I first went to England for the first time when I was 20 to see family, I saw my uncle, and that was the thing that he said back in 1989. He said he didn't understand why we didn't have a centralized healthcare, and I definitely agree with that. And so it'd be interesting to see how you would vote, because that's not a Republican ideal here in the United States.
This is what's strange, because it doesn't matter with because our equivalent, you like have the Republican, which we'd call the Conservative Party. You have like the Democrat, which we call the Labour Party. In Britain, it's different, because both ends of the spectrum, being conservative and being liberal, both see the essential of a healthy workforce, a healthy people. Because a healthy workforce is a happy workforce, more productive, more taxes are paid. It's like a continuum. It's an equilibrium of these things. And if you're in a position where, again, the unfortunately in America, where you got lots of money, but you haven't got the health care. If everyone got sick, everyone got ill, no one's working, no one's making money, no one's been producing. So common sense isn't communism, because we're by no means is England communist, either Labour or Conservative, but both parties, Labour and Conservative, see the essential need for the well-being of the populace from cradle to grave, as they say, of keeping the people healthy, because healthy equals wealthy. I know it's a horrible way to look at people, but that's how governments do. But they've worked out, if you've got a healthy populace, our population is nothing compared to America, yet a tiny little farty little island that we are, with the fifth most wealthiest country on earth, because we have these principles. Healthy equals wealthy. Keep bringing the people up, keep keeping them healthy, keeping them working. You're putting money into the system, and it's exponential. And I think America's gone perhaps the wrong way in that regard.
You're preaching to the choir here on for people watching. I am on the far left. You are on the far right, though. It probably would have been best if you were somewhere in the middle. Mr. C and Sister Sunshine should be on the far right. She could disagree, and it could be a crossfire. But yeah, no, I have no disagreement to what you said, Sister Sunshine.
What we call people like me, you do have far right here and far left. What you call it over here is compassionate conservatism. It basically, if you could put it into American terms, that would be because what's the word I'm trying to think of? They're very. What's the finances?
Where the Democrats and the Republicans cross over.
Yeah, it's kind of in between where the Democrats and the Republicans would cross over. But there's the word I'm trying to think of. I can't get out my lips. It's literally in between, kind of liberal.
Finance or
talking in financial terms.
Economics.
Yeah, economic financial terms. We're kind of what you'd class as compassionate conservative, i.e., we're in the centre ground. We see the moral right, and we see that what is good and godly in morals, what there is left on the right, we're talking predominantly, all right, and on the left, obviously, what we see is the left is kind of progressive, immoral, sick, but they have a little bit compassionate for, the sickly, the poor in society and stuff. So we're kind of centre ground, which you call, over there you'd probably call liberal, compassionate, Republican, I suppose.
We just probably call them moderate, is my guess.
Or maybe a moderate, a moderate.
Where we can find common ground. What's your position on free college?
Over here, my position over here is we're strange in Britain, because in Scotland it's free, in England it's not. Yeah. The thing is, what is silly, there is enough money for free college, but finances are being directed in other places at the moment. And I think a lot of that is due because we're in a real transition. We're coming out of the Antichrist, the European Union, and we'll become the sovereign state again. So we don't have to pay £50 billion a flipping month to the EU monster. We can now keep that money, and that can go to health, education, and all sorts of things.
All right, well, now, yeah, because I'm not a fan of. See, that's the thing with Bernie. Bernie Sanders is the guy who's the free healthcare guy, but he's like the free everything, free college, all this thing, and there's no way we're going to be able to pay for it. But we do have a Medicare system for our seniors that I think we could extend. That would be nice to try in theory. We have a ton of money that we put into the military, and if we have all that money that we were able to do, maybe now maybe that Trump proved that if we don't, we've already bought a new bunch of equipment. Maybe we can now put aside some of the money that was dedicated to that, and now think about healthcare. But unfortunately, there's no one running on the platform of that would be conservative. I suppose socially might help you, and even mostly economically, but liberal in the idea of giving everybody health care. We don't have it like that.
No, I've just noticed that obviously Blessed Fireball Clay, he's had an epiphany, and obviously wanted to say that everyone British greasy graces. Well, actually, I thought, yesterday it was the Jews that created the coronavirus, and now it's the greasy graces. So it's a toss-up between, or maybe it might be a combination. It might be the greasy graced messianic Jews that came together and created the coronavirus to cause this problem, and so obviously the Pope can be exalted, and obviously all Jews and Christians be like maligned.
Do you want to know the truth? Here's the real truth. I believe that the coronavirus is God's punishment to the world for Shani and Rev. No, because that's too mild. If that was God's punishment for Shani and Rev, that would be white belt. That would be complete annihilation of the human race. So I think it's too kind, Dan. Too kind, Rob. Well, it's pretty close. It almost killed me. I saw way too much than I should have.
Did you follow that rabbit hole?
I nearly died. Let's see. I want to see who this is.
I reckon that's Bruce.
I'm hoping it's who I think. If we hear
Hello.
Yes.
Okay.
Hello.
Hey, all right. I just wanted to point out that it was the British greasy gracers who didn't necessarily start the whole thing, but they are the ones that helped it mutate from S to L. Yeah, that's what happened.
I think you're right. But we all admit it, obviously, because we've got to listen to the right Reverend Rev TV and Shandy, that the coronavirus did come from the Jews via sound waves, and that penetrated the Grace community, and now we've obviously mutated to the point where we might actually wipe out the whole human race.
Well, if Charlie Manson was in charge, he would have taken care of this a long time ago and got rid of it.
Yeah.
I must be behind the power curve. I didn't know we were already to blaming the Jews. I thought that was the next stage that we were supposed to go to.
Remember, it's the fake Jews. It's the ones who are Zionists and from the tribe of Judah. We learned yesterday, Bruce, right?
Yes, I watched that video. I was couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I even put my camera on. I'm so awoke now, like everyone, that I had to put my camera on. I've got my skull and bones, pirate flag behind me.
Did you spend some time? I'm curious if you spent some time in brotherly love by removing the Confederate flag first.
Well, I do like I rotate them.
Thank you for that. I'll take the skull and crossbones any day.
Yeah, I do like. I actually, again, I know we had a mishap a while ago, but I actually like flags. I mean, literally, it's not just I was being, pedantic and trying to irritate. I like flags. I've got the Union flag.
The Confederate flag is a beautiful flag. I was a big fan of the General Lee in the 70s. I was I was like 9 years old when Dukes of Hazzard came out. I watched it and didn't think twice. So I'll give you that. How's that?
When you got like, man, even in England, we was watching reruns of the Dukes of Hazzard, like from when I was about 5 to about 30. That's
my mom. Before you continue, my mom, who is here, who would identify as Jewish, says, "Let's lay off the Jews." Mom, you need to understand that we're being sarcastic and referring to people who truly are anti-Semitic, and so we didn't mean, you're not a part of this particular group to know that. So just know that it's all tongue in cheek.
Yeah, so it is. Just again to refer to Rob's mum, we're being facetious. We're actually making fun of the anti-Semites who blame the Jews for literally. I've seen the Jews blamed for 9/11, stock market crashes, coronavirus, viruses before that. Well, I know we're Jewish descent, but it doesn't matter. But I'm just relaying that the Jews basically get blamed for everything.
We will agree that they do control all of the banks and the world's money, though, right?
No, I don't even agree. No, because that's rubbish. I pulled people up. I pulled actually, what's her name? What's on Bruce's hangout, that lady, I forgot her name. Yeah. Basically, if you want to actually get into the hardcore facts, who owns finances around the world, who's got the most gold, silver, diamond, emerald, sapphire reserves, you want to look at the Orthodox Church and the Roman Catholic Church. Forget about the Jews. That's nothing compared to what they own. So it's literally a flipping nonsensical, Stephen Amsden promoted anti-Semite retarded story that the Jews own all the banks. That's rubbish. You want to see how much
stop hating the Jews and let's start hating the Catholics. That's the ultimate lesson that I've gotten from here. We need to call for Catholics extermination, and then we've solved everything.
No one exterminate. I don't know what people want to keep exterminating people all the time.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm just I see that somehow it worked in the past.
Theologically, I can't stand obviously that the Romanist like church.
Is she going to put a conservative flag?
No, we're going to
we're going to do better than that.
We're doing better than that. So hang on. We're changing flags.
We have the Welsh flag, either the UK or the Welsh flag.
No.
Although the Welsh might be worse than the Catholics to you, potentially.
Uh-oh.
But I'm Welsh. Oh, there we go. The Zionist flag.
Yeah, so I'll be Zionist now because I'm so Zionist. Look, even the wife is staying on the radiator just tonight, flipping out. She don't ever
Please
stand
don't fall down for our sakes. Please do not.
She'll land on me, and I'm not.
Well, it reminds me that I actually have a video I was tempted to put up, but I look like such a fat ass. Pardon the expression. We have a ring on the front porch that videotapes, and so we have this problem because of the rains. We have a leak in one of our rooms, pane, and I think what contributed to it was the fact that one of the rain gutters wasn't cleaned out. So I'm trying to unclog the rain gutter so that the water can get through there. And you can see me on video where I did something to try and unclog it, and the whole thing kind of fell off. The water started rushing on me, and I almost fell off the ladder. What's that?
Could have been an anointing.
Well, it was a muddy, horrible coronavirus.
Can you imagine if in the time of the plague you die from falling off a dang ladder? How ignoble of an end.
Yeah. That would really. But you know, when you're as big as I am, unfortunately now, and getting older, and my joints don't work as well, I was only 3 steps on the ladder up, but it might as well have been 20. It felt like I was falling for about 10 seconds, and it really was only about a half a second.
You know, all joking aside, I worked with a gal. That's how her husband met his maker. He fell off the roof and killed him.
And that's when my wife's staring at me. We got a tarp. And she's laughing at me. This is after I almost died falling off the ladder. I get back on the ladder. I'm trying to get the tarp on, to see if we could prevent that. And I just realized, I think exactly what you're talking about. I said, Marie, I'm not dying for us to not have a leak. We're gonna hire somebody to come in here
But
when the rains are over. Hopefully, we won't have too
I
much
didn't
rain.
go to law school to die by falling off a roof. We can pay
I'm
someone to
not-
do this.
I'm not dying trying to put a tarp on my roof. Just not gonna.
I would spiritualize it. I would have like spiritualized it to like Jacob's ladder, where he was ascending and he was understanding the Lord, and he took you home early because you was getting too close to the mark. I would have really spiritualized that one that day.
Well, you could write a new book of the Bible, and you could call it Rob's Ladder, and
Rob, I could
Rob's Ladder. I like that. So see, look how happy
you
we
could,
got.
you could, yeah. The letter O robbed and on.
Exactly.
Hang on, let me mute myself for a second.
Yeah, Rob Tales. So it was less than a half hour ago. We were already talking in this hangout about the end of the world, and now we're being lighthearted and smiling. Do you really think it's the end of the world, Sister Sunshine?
I don't think it's the end of the world because I don't think we're actually in the tribulation period yet. I think this is a birth pain. I think it's a wake-up call, though. I hope that, what I hope, like, for example, my husband got home from work and he said that the stores were absolutely packed. That there's not even a parking place, that the big run on supplies has begun. And like I said, I saw this coming at least a month out. So myself and my family, we have prepped already. So we're good. But I'm hoping that people, out of this great sadness that some people may be having to go through here in the next month, I would hope that it also is a time of reflection and introspection for people to look at their life and say, am I spending my life the right way? If I was to be affected, if I was to die of this, what would my eternal destination be? Am I living a life that's pleasing to God? All of these kind of existential questions that a lot of people in the day-to-day grind that they're not even thinking about, that they're not giving a lot of thought to it. And I think this is a real time for the church to shine because our forefathers, in the church, they didn't live in a spirit of fear. They lived in a spirit of service. And if you truly believe that God gives life and God takes life, then you know that no matter what we do, right? If it's our time to go, it's our time to go. This is the mindset that brought people to leper colonies, to be of service to people, to treat people that had TB, which in the old days, that was very frightening. Christians have historically been there when others weren't. I mean, in Europe, right, the hospitalers, these were Christian believers that started the first hospitals, that really gave birth to the whole idea of nursing and hospitals and any kind of healthcare structure. So I would hope that America, claiming to be a Christian nation, I would hope that we're going to see effective ministry and outreach. So in some ways, this can also be a way for us to witness through our life. You know what I mean? Are we going to go out there and maybe sacrifice of ourselves to feed our neighbor who didn't prep? Because people automatically are going to be like, I have mine. If you didn't take preparations, well, then that's on you. But as Christians, we're called, right, to even love our enemies. So this is the time frame where it's like the rubber may meet the road. I've got enough food to last, however much time. But if I share it, right, that's a real sacrifice. It could be, so it'll be interesting to see what value we place on human life.
It's also to talk about the gospel message. And, so you said that when we reflect on whether we're doing enough for God to be right for God, the Christian gospel message is that we can never do enough.
Right.
And that's why we need Jesus. And so this is a way for, I guess, ultimately, and not a bad way to end the hangout, is that if the only hope that I know of, like if there was a key to heaven, there's only one that I can guarantee will open the door to heaven for you, and that is in right relationship relationship with God through Jesus Christ by simply believing in him, by simply, if you don't believe in him now, you change your mind and you start believing in him, study about him, maybe come to my channel. You could go to Bill's channel. You could go to Sister Sunshine's channel. Sometimes Bruce's. I don't know where he went.
What's that? There's none other name under heaven given among men by which we must be saved.
No, heathen. What? How could you be heathen?
Straighten it out. I probably got it wrong.
Oh, you got it right there. There's no other name given under heaven as to where people must be saved. And that's all. Yes, we know. Next, it's Christ Jesus. There's none other name. That's the only way. Literally, I am the way, the truth, and the life.
Well, except for
me. Forget it. There ain't no other way. I'm not going to give the gospel saying my channel. Plus, I'm a Zionist tonight. No. I'm a Zionist. I can't even. I'm not even allowed now.
All right, okay,
the Nephilim could come after me and like eat my skull and do what what they usually do. They're Nephilim. They're everywhere. They're everywhere.
It's what I say.
One quick question before you close down, though. Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. That's an Acts, right?
I think I'll take your word.
That's John. Jesus Christ says that.
Yeah, but it's not in the book of Acts. Or am I wrong?
No, Acts. No, it's not in the book of Acts. It's in John's Gospel.
Yeah, Jesus said that.
4:12. Then what is the big deal with Acts 4:12? I'm thinking that was a big deal.
Well, yeah, because that's talking about, that's obviously post Pentecost, and that's speaking, exactly. Obviously, the apostles there were speaking. There is none other name. You can't under Judaism.
Oh, yeah, I got them mixed up. I only know 2 verses, but
under Judaism, they neglected their Messiah predominantly. And, their way was still through, obviously, the Father, through the temple sacrifice and everything else. And the apostles made it clear. No, forget this. There's no other way, save through Jesus Christ. And even Paul emphasized even more that he was even determined not to know anyone save for Jesus Christ and him crucified. Paul, don't forget, was the most learned Pharisee of Pharisees, taught even under Gamaliel. If anyone knew anything biblical, he puts us to shame. Don't matter how clever you think you are now, and there's been many a good scholar, in comparison to the Apostle Paul, we are, and I'm not deriding us, we're now, if that makes sense. He knew the whole story. I mean, the Pharisee of all Pharisees, the man who knew all the knowledge, Gamaliel, was literally teaching Paul. He knew everything, Judaism and anything in between. He knew it all. And this was his statement when they started arguing and kind of, saying that, are you really an apostle? Are you really a disciple? And to defend himself, he goes through the context, and he sums the whole thing up. I determined to know nothing among you save Jesus Christ and him crucified. Forget about all Judaism, though there's good pointers in there, so much interest, so much biblical knowledge there, and Calvin. So he determined to know nothing. That's how important that Christ's resurrection, his death, his death, burial, and resurrection was. That Paul didn't want to know anything else in regard to soteriological terms, in regard to, people arguing to and fro, am I an apostle, am I not an apostle, am I this, am I that, am I called, am I not, am I anointed or I'm not. Forget all that. All I look at is Christ and him crucified, and that is all that matters. And that's what mattered to every single creature this day. Look unto Christ and be ye saved. That's
I wouldn't say that. Yeah, I wouldn't say that Paul would say forget Judaism necessarily.
No, but I
want to make the point for someone like my mom.
In comparison, because I love the Old Testament. I love the Old Testament.
The way I look at it is it's the story of Judaism. In other words, I am completed as a Jew, I believe, because we're in the new covenant. And you just have to accept that new covenant that is in the Old Testament in Jeremiah 31:31, and it's interesting. It's very liberal perspective from our United States liberalism. Is that the only religion there is where you could just simply believe, and it's open to anybody. Judaism itself under the Old Covenant, the Old Testament, was limited to a small people, and it was God's idea to open up to the world, that anyone who should believe in Jesus and what he did, that he lived, that he died, and that especially he rose again, giving us victory over death. That is the completion of Judaism. It is Judaism as far as I'm concerned.
I was giving it Bill worked up a little bit. What about that? I think it's only the cosmos, those who are predestined.
Don't you be naughty now.
Okay, naughty. Yeah, that's it. I'm out of here again. I'm not going to give in the cos.
You are funny. There is that word cosmos world where obviously the Calvinists see the cosmos, the world.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're doing. In the predestined.
The word cosmos and predestination, those two words put together, though, that's I knew that was like nasty.
Yeah, on that note, Teresa C says, Bruce, you were naughty. You are.
Yes, I know. All right. Have a good night. Thanks. Good seeing you.
Thank you for joining us. This has been it was a mukbang. You ever heard of mukbang, Bill?
No, we have like bare knuckle fights. Is that like similar?
No, it's a thing I just discovered. It's like skinny. It started with skinny Korean woman eating massive amounts of food, and either just eating and being on film, or usually talking. And that's where it started. I started eating my Korean ramen, and that was what the title was. We had a good time. I think that it's almost been 2 hours. I think I should get back to work, and then I'm going to go home. But thank you for joining me, sir.
All right, I'll give you the blessing, even behind the Zionist and flag. All right, okay, you'll be all right now for a week.
Rob, the Stoned, and the Casper the Friendly Ghost. Ramen.
No, and that be the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
Amen.
Holy.
Amen. No, Teresa C says, I'm still convinced Bruce is a closet Christian. I always have. So he knows that. Yeah. There's no doubt. Now, see, I just touched my face. Don't touch your face. Wash your hands.
Yeah, don't touch your face. Drink beer.
If
you drink the beer, you're immune. You touch
right
your
there.
balls. You can do that as long as you drink beer. That's already killed the corona. That's dead.
Right there. The molecules right now are being killed. We all need that. That is the solution to the coronavirus. God bless you all. Thank you for watching. We'll see you soon. Have a good weekend. Take care of each other. Bye.
Well.